Have you ever seen someone challenge centuries of military tradition just to take a selfie? What if I told you a woman did exactly that? She stood defiantly in the path of the Queen's Guard, thinking they'd stop for her. But seconds later, she learned just how wrong she was. This isn't a fictional story. It happened right in the heart of London, in front of a crowd of stunned tourists. And the way it unfolded? It was brutal, not violent, not cruel, just inevitable. You see, we live in an age where clout sometimes outweighs common sense, where people believe that a few thousand Instagram followers give them the right to bend the world around them. Rules? Optional. Respect? Negotiable. Authority? Just a show. That's what Vanessa Thornwell thought when she strutted past the crowd at Lancaster Palace. Dressed in designer heels, sunglasses too large for her face, and an attitude sharper than her manicure, she scoffed at the people waiting in line. "I'm not just some tourist," she said. "I have a lunch at the Ritz." And then, she did the unthinkable. She stood directly in the ceremonial path of the Queen's Guard and refused to move. Security warned her. A retired war veteran pleaded with her. Even families with young children begged her to step aside, but she rolled her eyes, raised her phone, SMIRKED. And then the unmistakable rhythm of boots echoed across the cobblestones. The soldiers appeared, scarlet coats, bearskin hats, expressions carved in stone. Leading them was Sergeant Elias Ward, combat-tested veteran, who had served in Afghanistan and returned with one mission: uphold tradition with unbreakable precision. The crowd parted. The guard formation advanced. And Vanessa? She stood her ground. Then, a shoulder hit her with clockwork accuracy. Her body spun, her phone shattered, her screen cut through the air, and her outstretched hand trying to break her fall mat. The hard, polished boot of a marching soldier. That boot didn't stop. It didn't hesitate, because it wasn't just a boot. It was history. It was protocol. It was discipline in motion. Vanessa thought she'd get likes. Instead, she got a lesson. And the most shocking part? The crowd didn't rush to help her. They filmed her. Because they knew what she didn't. This wasn't assault. This was accountability. So the next time you see someone treat respect like an inconvenience, remember this story. Sometimes, the most powerful message doesn't come from shouting. It comes from silence. And the steady march of boots that never stop for ego. If you've witnessed entitlement clash with discipline, drop your story in the comments. And if you believe some traditions should never be mocked, hit like, subscribe, and let respect march on. Welcome to Tales and Truths, where real stories collide with raw emotion and timeless lessons. Here, we don't just tell you what happened, we show you what it meant. Like today's story, a woman who believed the world would move for her, until she stood in the path of centuries-old military discipline. What unfolded wasn't just a clash between a tourist and a soldier. It was a collision between ego and tradition, noise and duty, entitlement and consequence. At Tales and Truths, we bring you gripping narratives drawn from real events, stories that make you think, feel, and sometimes rethink everything. If you believe in the power of truth wrapped in story, in quiet lessons hidden inside bold moments, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, stay curious, and remember, not all truths shout. Some march forward in silence. It started like any other quiet afternoon near Lancaster Palace. Tourists gathered, cameras ready, kids clinging to their parents' hands. The changing of the guard was about to begin, one of those classic British rituals that's been done the same way for centuries. No fuss, no exceptions. Just polished boots, stoic faces, and absolute precision. And then she arrived. You could hear her before you saw her. Heels clacking on old stone, phone already in hand, sunglasses reflecting more attitude than sunlight. Her name? Vanessa Thornwell. American accent, designer everything, the kind of woman who walks like she owns every sidewalk she steps on. To her, The guards weren't soldiers. They were props, the palace, a backdrop, and the entire crowd. Just extras in a show she was about to star in. She breezed past families who had been waiting all morning, brushed against a little boy who flinched as her bag nearly hit his head. An old couple politely gestured toward the queue. She scoffed. "I'm not here to stand in line. I have a lunch reservation at the Ritz," she snapped, as if that somehow rewrote the rules of space and time. You could feel the shift in the air. People started watching her, not because she was impressive, but because she was interrupting something sacred, not with malice, but with entitlement. A palace staff member tried to intervene, soft-spoken, still kind. "Ma'am, for security reasons, we ask all visitors to stay behind the line." She cut him off before he could finish. "Do you know who I am?" No one answered, because no one cared. Vanessa didn't see it. She was too busy flipping her hair, adjusting her phone, angling for the perfect shot. The way she saw it, the world had always adjusted around her. Doors opened. People stepped aside. Rules bent. So why should today be any different? When a retired serviceman named Ruben warned her, a quiet, gentle man with medals on his chest and patience in his voice, she laughed in his face. "They'll walk around me," she said, "as if I'm going to move for someone in a fuzzy hat." That was the moment when it all shifted. The moment when this stopped being a minor annoyance and became a collision course. Because what Vanessa didn't understand, what many people don't, is that some things aren't meant to change for convenience. Some things are built on tradition, on duty, on sacrifice. The guards aren't. They're for show. They're not trained to entertain. They're trained to march, to protect, to execute orders without pause. But Vanessa? She saw a stage. She saw followers. She saw a photo that might go viral. What she didn't see was the weight of the uniform, walking straight toward her. And that's where we're going next. Because when discipline meets ego, someone always gets knocked off balance. The only question is, will they learn from the fall? Let's find out. There's a moment right before something bad happens, when time feels thick. Like the air around you knows what's coming, even if you don't. That moment hung over the palace courtyard, like a held breath. Vanessa Thornwell stood there, center frame, phone lifted, lips pursed in determination. She wasn't budging. She was locked in, convinced that her photo, her perfect, once-in-a-lifetime shot, mattered more than any protocol, any warning, any voice around her. And there were voices. Plenty of them. First, it was the tourists, gentle at first, trying not to offend. A young father from Australia tried to coax her aside. "Please, miss. The kids have been waiting since morning." Vanessa didn't even look at him. "They can wait a little longer, can't they?" Then came Ruben again, the retired soldier. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply stepped forward, medals on his chest, and said with the kind of calm that only comes from experience, "Ma'am, you need to step back. They won't stop." Vanessa barely turned. She laughed. Not kindly, the kind of laugh people use when they're trying to embarrass you. They're guards, not robots. If they're real professionals, they'll go around me. She adjusted her sunglasses, lifted her phone again, shifted her weight slightly, planting her heels like roots in stone. It was a stance of certainty. Not the good kind. The kind that comes from never having been told no in a meaningful way. You could feel the tension starting to ripple. The palace staff issued another official warning. "Clear the ceremonial path. Last warning. The guards will not stop or change their route." And still, she didn't move. By now, the drums could be heard. That steady, rhythmic beat that signaled something real was coming. The sound of military boots against ancient stone. It carries a weight, a message. It says, this is not a performance, but for Vanessa? It still felt like a photo op. She raised her voice now, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is a public space. I pay taxes. My husband pays taxes. We're entitled to stand wherever we want." Her voice echoed across the stone, bouncing off centuries-old walls like a challenge. She turned to the crowd, expecting applause, expecting someone, anyone, to nod in agreement. That no one did, because everyone else had moved. Everyone else understood what was about to happen. Everyone. Except her. Then came the final warning. A palace security officer stepped forward. Calm, direct, no emotion. "Clear the path, ma'am, or you will be removed by force. This is your final warning." She didn't just ignore him. She looked him in the eye and said, "Try it. I'd love to see you explain that to my lawyer." At that exact moment, the Queen's Guard rounded the corner, scarlet coats, shining boots, eyes forward, no pause, no hesitation, and leading them, Sergeant Elias Ward. He didn't flinch when he saw her, didn't slow, didn't even blink. Because in that moment, she wasn't a person anymore. She was an obstacle. And in his world, obstacles don't stop the mission, they're removed. That's what Vanessa didn't understand. And in less than 10 seconds, she was about to learn, the hard way. The sound of the boots was unmistakable now, sharp, rhythmic, unyielding, like thunder with purpose. And in the middle of that sacred path stood Vanessa Thornwell, stubborn as ever, posing like she was the main character in a scene she didn't understand. Around her, the crowd had pulled back. It was no longer just a tourist event. It felt like something larger, something ancient and real about to clash with something small and modern. Ego wrapped in entitlement. Sergeant Elias Ward was leading the formation. Every step was measured, every breath aligned. He didn't glance at Vanessa. He didn't assess her threat level. He didn't have to, because in his world, there are no detours, no improvisation. There is only the route and the mission. Make way for the Queen's Guard. The command rang out again. Still, Vanessa held her ground. She was smiling. She truly thought this was a bluff. Behind her glasses, she watched through her phone screen, angling for a dramatic selfie as the guards drew closer, as if their formation would stop 2 feet away, as if the power of her presence would override military discipline. And then, it happened. 1 second, she was standing. The next, she was tumbling. Sergeant Ward didn't shove her. He didn't attack. He simply kept moving. A practiced shoulder brush, just firm enough, just precise enough, nudged her out of the way, exactly like soldiers are trained to do with unmovable objects. Her phone flew from her hands. Her sunglasses hit the stones. And as she hit the ground, scrambling for balance, she reached out with one hand to stop her fall. It landed right in the path of his boot. The timing wasn't malicious. It wasn't intentional, but it was unavoidable. A heavy military boot, polished to perfection, landed squarely on her outstretched hand. The same hand she had proudly used to dismiss warnings, wave off advice, and assert dominance. Now it was pinned to the cobblestone by the weight of order, of history, of everything she thought didn't apply to her. She screamed, the kind of scream that slices through ceremony. Not from surprise, but from the realization that the world wasn't going to move for her this time. "You broke my hand," she shrieked, still sitting on the cold stone, clutching her wrist. But the guards didn't stop. Not a single one. Broke formation. They marched on, eyes ahead, boots in sync, the rhythm of centuries beating against her sense of entitlement. Vanessa turned to the crowd, now recording, watching, whispering, "Did you see that? He attacked me. I want him arrested." But there was no applause, no outrage, only silence. The only person who stepped forward was Reuben, the old veteran who had warned her earlier. He extended a hand to help her up. She slapped it away. "Don't touch me. I want the police." And the police did come. 2 officers approached, calmly, professionally. Vanessa was red-faced, shaking, furious. But the truth was, the moment had already passed. She'd been warned. She'd refused. And now, She wasn't the hero of a dramatic viral video. She was the cautionary tale. And across the courtyard, standing still as a statue, Sergeant Elias Ward remained at attention, unshaken, unbothered. Just one scuff on his boot. The only sign anything had happened at all. Vanessa Thornwell was still sitting on the ground, one hand pressed tightly against her chest, the other cradling her wrist like it was made of glass. Her designer blazer, cream white just moments ago, was now smeared with gray cobblestone dust. Her hair, once carefully set, had begun to frizz with heat and panic. But her anger? That remained perfectly intact. He stomped on me. She shouted again, her voice rising like a siren. I'm a visitor. I have rights. Someone arrest that man. But the formation was already far past her. The guards, led by Sergeant Ward, had reached their post without so much as a pause. Their backs were straight, their faces unreadable, their boots perfectly aligned. Not one of them looked back. To them, the moment had ended the second she fell. Out of their path, there was nothing else to say, no apology to offer, no debate to enter. But for Vanessa, it was just beginning. You all saw it. She yelled at the crowd, now filming her from every angle. This is assault. I'll have his badge. I'll sue the entire palace if I have to. One palace security officer stepped forward, voice professional, calm. Madam, you were given multiple verbal warnings to clear the ceremonial route. The Queen's Guard are authorized to remove any obstruction. Obstruction? She hissed. I'm a paying guest. I'm not some obstacle. But that's exactly what she had become. An immovable force that mistakenly believed it was immovable. And now, the very crowd she expected to cheer her on was quiet. Some shook their heads. Others whispered behind phones. A few children clung to their parents, unsure whether to be scared or just confused. Vanessa stood up shakily, still clutching her hand, as a second officer approached. P.C. Daniels, a woman with steady eyes and a notepad. Ma'am, I'm Officer Daniels. I'll need your version of events. Vanessa let out a breathless, almost hysterical laugh. Oh, I'll tell you what happened. Your little toy soldier over there body checked me to the ground and crushed my hand. He's dangerous. He needs to be arrested. Now, behind her, Officer Johnson was quietly collecting witness statements from Reuben, from a few tourists, from a nearby mother with 2 small children, and every story matched. Same details, same warnings, same refusal to move. Eventually, Officer Johnson returned and nodded at his colleague. Ma'am, Daniels began carefully. We've gathered 6 separate statements confirming you were warned multiple times and chose to remain in the ceremonial path. The guard's actions were within military protocol. Vanessa's face flushed a deeper red. No, I don't accept that. You don't get to trample people and hide behind tradition. He should be punished. Reuben finally spoke again, soft but clear. Ma'am, that guard isn't a mascot. He's a soldier. He's not paid to flatter egos. He's trained to follow orders, and you chose to stand in the way of those orders. I don't care, she snapped. I want his name, his commander's name, and the number of your department. This isn't over. I'll bring the media into this, but the truth was, it already was over. She didn't know it yet. But the world around her had already made up its mind. She thought she was the victim of a military overreaction. But to everyone watching, she had become something else entirely. A viral lesson in what happens when pride stands in the path of discipline. The police didn't raise their voices. They didn't handcuff her, not yet. But they did surround Vanessa Thornwell with the one thing she couldn't control, reality. Her outrage grew louder with every minute. I'm calling my lawyer. My husband's firm will make sure that man never wears a uniform again. I'll own this palace by the end of the week. No one replied. P.C. Daniels, notepad still in hand, spoke with careful, practiced tone. Madam, you may file a formal complaint. But I must remind you, interfering with active duty, military personnel during official duties is a criminal offense in the United Kingdom. Vanessa blinked, stunned. You're saying I'm the criminal? Officer Johnson nodded once. We've reviewed the footage. The verbal warnings, the crowd statements. Your actions meet the legal definition of obstruction. And then came the moment. The one that silences even the loudest people. A new figure approached the scene. Tall, composed, his brass insignia gleaming under the sun. Captain Rowan Evans, commander of that day's guard detail. He didn't shout. He didn't even speak right away. He simply looked at Vanessa, really looked at her, then turned to the officers and said, I've been briefed, Vanessa. Saw an opening. Finally, someone important. Someone who would understand her position. That guard assaulted me, she declared, stepping forward dramatically, cradling her wrist. I want him arrested. He deliberately attacked me. I didn't do anything. Captain Evans didn't flinch. His voice, when it came, was clear and cool. Your injury is unfortunate. But everything my man did, he did according to protocol. Vanessa's jaw clenched. You're defending him? After he threw me to the ground? No, Evans replied. I'm defending a centuries-old military institution. One that doesn't pause for personal photo ops. And just like that, there was nothing left to say. Vanessa sputtered, searched for something, anything, to turn the crowd back to her side. But it was too late. The crowd had already moved on. The moment had passed, and she had become the punchline of her own story. Officer Johnson stepped closer, soft but firm. Ma'am, would you prefer to come with us voluntarily to make a statement? Or shall we proceed with formal arrest for disturbing the peace and interfering with military duties? Vanessa looked around, desperate. But no one stepped forward. No one held up a phone to defend her. No one offered sympathy. Reuben and his friend Martin, the two retired veterans, stood nearby, silent, still, not with anger, but with something sadder, recognition. They'd seen it before. The moment when pride crashes into something bigger and loses. As Vanessa was led gently toward the gates by the officers, still muttering about lawyers and social media and justice, Captain Evans turned to the remaining crowd. His words were simple. Thank you for your patience. Please remember, what you witness here is not a performance. These guards are soldiers, highly trained, disciplined, and deeply proud of their duty. They serve not just the crown, but the tradition, honor, and sacrifice that came before them. The courtyard grew quiet again. The changing of the guard resumed. And Sergeant Elias Ward, still motionless at his post, did not blink, did not move. His boot, still gleaming despite a faint smudge, rested firmly on stone, and somewhere behind him, a woman who thought the world would bend for her, had finally learned that some things do not move, not for money, not for noise, not for ego, not when history is marching. What do you think? Was the guard too harsh? Or was Vanessa simply the product of a world where ego often trumps respect? Have you ever witnessed someone act like the rules don't apply to them? Tell us in the comments. We're not just looking for reactions, we want your perspective. Whether you agree, disagree, or have a story of your own, we'd love to hear it. Because sometimes the most powerful lessons come not from lectures, but from watching what happens when discipline meets entitlement. So go ahead, share your thoughts below. We read everyone.